Well, I had a little story to start mine out. And it just come out that Mother was asking for people to go to South America. And we all said, I don't speak Spanish. Well, let's put our name in. And so we put our name in. I knew no Spanish whatsoever, and whose name gets drawn out is mine. I mean, not that I didn't want to go, but I entered the Ursuline Sisters, so I would never have to go to a foreign mission. So I chose, well, they had taught me all my years, but that was principally one of the reasons. Because I thought Maryknoll was great, but I wasn't going to those missions. And so here I am. I had no clue where I was going. I had to go to a geography book, find out where Peru was, first of all. I had no clue. Anyway, that's how I started mine, with no Spanish whatsoever. I couldn't even say hello. French 5 years. So that was my beginnings.
I volunteered because I often dreamed, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a missionary, but I didn't know what it involved. And I was really happy when Agnes Marie called me. It was on Mother's Day, and said, your new obedience is you're going to Peru. And I said, what? He says, to Peru. Oh, good, and I was happy as a lark, but I had no idea really where it was, And like Martha said, I had to look it up. And when I told my folks, my dad said, well, that's at the end of the world, and it was. But I was really very, very happy about it. I didn't know what it involved, but... And I had one college course of Spanish, and I think I got a D. So anyway, that was our beginning.
Okay, I got my obedience on Ascension Thursday, which was probably the same week. She probably got hers on Sunday, and I probably got it on Thursday. We were still teaching till the middle of June. We were going to leave on July 8th. But the funny thing was, Mother had everything in order as far as paperwork. She had our passports. She had everything. She had our birth certificates. I don't know how she got them from Cumberland, Maryland, anyway.
They had the white habits made.
They thought.
It was supposed to be tropical climate. It was the coldest year they had in 25 years. And I'm not kidding. When we went down there in these white habits, Aquinas, she went out and bought us these pajamas, and we put them under our habit. We were so cold.
Flannel
we didn't
pajamas.
have anything else, But
there was no heat, and we were going to live with the sisters at the Navy School, which they had no convent. We used the barracks for the young sailors who were learning to be nurses, and they gave us one part of that. So
it was a whole wing, like.
Oh yeah. They were next door to a convent, but we lived with the Ursuline sisters, Mother Xavier and Sister Aquinas, who were going to teach over there. So that's what they gave them until they got a convent built. Okay. So we were supposed to live with them, and they were supposed to help us with their salary, get half of their salary to help us. So it was supposed to be a partnership, but
they were our sisters. I think that principally is the problem on how we started out without any orientation. We didn't know each other. They never called us together and tried to explain to us what they really wanted us to try to do down there. It was hearsay, like we would get it maybe from Aquinas and Helen, or whatever, Xavier. So there was no orientation, no specifications, how to live under what conditions of going back and forth to home, what happens if something happens in your family, your health. Nothing was discussed, absolutely nothing. So we went down in with this orientation and doing whatever came up, we had to abide by. And that's what happened. And we went, and there's where we landed, in one of these wings. And when we came, our beds weren't even there yet. And what they did, they took classrooms and they broke through the doorways. Like these wings, all the classrooms were separate, and the door was only to the outside.
Yeah.
Okay. So they broke doorways through all these 4 or 5 rooms to make it a place for living quarters for us.
Yes.
And there was a half bath, but there was water.
We were not an international community. We were not a missionary community. In fact, when Mother Superior came down to check out where we were going to work, we were supposed, 2 sisters were to work at the naval school and 2 were to go to the mountains. And the papal nuncio told our superior, he said, we were not a missionary community. So he would think it would be better if we start on the coast and then work ourselves up to the mountains. And so that is when she had to hurry and rush and find a place for us down down on the coast. And Father Garrity and Mary Knoll somehow got involved in that discussion, and that's what she took. But Father Garrity was in charge of the Misión de Lima, which built buildings, small buildings in different parts of the areas, poor areas, to be used for whatever the group that he could find to go into there.
Almirante Galvez was his name. Almirante Galvez is the one they made all the arrangements with. He was an official of the Navy school.
Navy.
The Peruvian Navy, yeah. And so the arrangements were made through them, and we were there only a week, 1 week, and we had to start language school out St. James Language School out in Cieneguilla, which took way over an hour on a bus. And it's the foot of the Andes Mountains. And St. James Language School was by North Americans.
St. James Society from Massachusetts, I think.
And we were to study there 3 months. And we had to live there from Monday to Friday. So they rented a house for us. It was about a 20-minute walk to the school. And we had lights by generator from 8 to 10 in the evening. After that, we studied by flashlight. And so we would go in the morning. Monday mornings, we'd have to take this bus, ride out there, go to class and stay there till Friday in the same routine, come back the same way on this bus. Then that's when things start happening really rare. On Saturdays, this Father John Koss, who he was called a son of Mary. He was the only priest that belonged to a brothers community that was working in Peru. And he would pick us up on Saturday mornings. We would go out. We would try to play with the kids, get used to the children. We met youth. We met ladies. They would come. They were very, very friendly, warm, and open. they act like they knew you, you know, and
We played volleyball.
we do anything, you know. We just started anything. No, it's only at where we were in the Legua, and so he would have mass, and then we would come home. By that time, our white habits were gray.
Because
We
the
washed
ground,
them at late night. It was terrible.
the ground
It
was
was all sand.
Yeah, sand,
dirt.
from the
Yeah.
river.
Yeah.
It used to be a riverbed, is what it used to be. And white habits, no hot water. So you can imagine the whole bottom of it was always filthy all around the
Yeah.
bottom.
There were mosquitoes, scorpions, rats. It was just horrible. No water, no lights, no streets, only one along the riverbed. It wasn't a street, it was rocky stuff where we walked many a time, you know.
Yes.
It was just primitive. But the people, that's the thing I think that kept us going and kept God's grace to look at the real thing. People were so warm and welcome, and they didn't even realize what we were trying to do, and we didn't either, but they just, no, they were just trying to be so helpful. And,
I'm just so glad that we were there,
yeah, right.
truthfully.
But they were the Saturdays how we spent, and then we'd go back to language school. Finally, language school ended. We went there July, we got there on the 8th. The following week, we went to school. That was half of July, but during July is Fiestas Patrias, so you're out a full week of fiesta.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
So then you went into October, November, and
The reason why we had to come home every weekend, that St. James Society was set up only for priests.
yeah,
We were the first women who got to that school. So that's why we had to get a place that was different. They got to stay the whole 7 days, but we didn't, because the house that we rented, the family came
Yeah.
up there for weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. So we had to leave for that reason. That's the reason why.
Back and
Otherwise,
forth,
we
yeah.
would have stayed.
yeah. That was a grace, I thought, because we met children, youth, women. And there were people like Juana Hill and Abuelita Isabel. There were a group of ladies that protected the land when it was in danger of being taken over by the local people. They were squatters also, but they didn't do it for themselves. They did it for church purposes, to have a church and a school in time. And that was in 52. That was years before we ever came. And in the meantime, when that happened, until we got there in 64, the women had to protect the land. And Juana Hill came to our community here in Lowell, and she received the Angelin Award. She told these stories, how they were they threw rocks at them, they did everything to take that land from them, but they would sleep there at night even, protect the land.
Open
And so-
land.
Yes, it was just open. So, and no fence, nothing. So the Misión de Lima, which was the Arzobispado of the only
The chancellor.
cardinal was there, Cardinal Landazuri. They're the ones that sent the Misión de Lima to put up an all-purpose building, which we called the chapel. It was the church after, and 5 classrooms. And the mothers' clubs used to use them, and they used them for other purposes, you know. But that is why that building was there. It was an all-purpose building for the parish to be. And the ladies knew that, and they protected it with their lives. They were beautiful people. Juana Hill, remember, and I don't know, Abuelita Isabel.
And Maria lived right across the street.
The women were heroic. They were heroic, yes. They taught us a lot, and they were so patient with us. We'd make all kind of mistakes. Martha had this great gift of laughing. About the time the little Hermana was trying to tell you a joke or something.
Oh, is this the one I was telling you about yesterday? I was teaching how to say the sign of the cross, and one kid was misbehaving. And I said, in the name of the Father, and the kid was misbehaving. I said, sit down. And the little kid followed me. In the name of the Father, sit down.
No, that other one where the little sister was telling you the joke and you laughed.
Oh, okay. Next door,
This was way before.
we were living at the barracks. The little lay sister next door would always help us out, and she was going to teach Spanish to me. I got her. I says, help me out here. So she was always telling these jokes. I never knew what she was saying. I had no idea. And so one time she started laughing. I laughed. She said, what did I say?
Then we did laugh.
She knew. She knew all along, but she led me on.
The clausura, or the closing,
It was the night that
was November the 6th, and that's the day my father died. Well, this is the thing. It took them all day through a beautiful friend we had. Earlene Sukar was an Ursuline graduate from here in Louisville, Kentucky, and she was studying nursing and met Dr. Sukar, who was a Peruvian doctor studying at St. Joseph's Infirmary. And they met and fell in love and married. And so she was down there, and we had made connections with her immediately when we went. And through her, she just knew the ropes to get my ticket, and everything was in order. And then the two sisters took them all. They got there about 5 o'clock in the evening, came and told me that, and then, which was a shock, and that we had to leave right away with them. So we went back, and they had everything all ready. I packed a suitcase and went home. Well, I didn't think anything of permission or anything else. I didn't know what I was doing, You're in shock. Well, that was the biggest mistake we could have ever made. I got the coldest reception, Agnes Marie. In 2 weeks, we went, after the funeral and everything, we were back down in Peru. Went alone. That was another big deal. But anyway, we made it. God's good. He always took care of us. Dumb. Anyway, she said, well, I'm going down to Peru to straighten things out. Well, about time she straightened things out, Excuse me.
Well,
They had no right for getting me there without permission.
yes. See, this was in the time of pre-Vatican II,
And everything was rigid.
from the top down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were there for 5 years, not to come home in 5 years. Now they travel back and forth, but in those days, we went down with the idea to stay 5 years. I wanted to re-up afterward, but 5 years. So that's where she got, we thought of death because it had just before we came that we made home visits. And we thought, there's nothing wrong with that. Go. Well, it wasn't right. It wasn't according to, we hadn't gotten that permission.
She did come back, and
A few.
she got her a few other things cleared up too. But funny thing is that we were always hungry there. We really were all the time.
We
But
got our
anyway,
food from the hospital.
yeah.
And you know
So-
what hospital food is, first of all. Second of all, it was Peruvian. We weren't used to Peruvians. So they would come over in a little 3 cans, one on
Vianda.
top of the
Vianda.
other.
Uh-huh.
And the first one, she can remember the first.
The bottom was rice, soup, rice, fried eggs thrown on top of it, something else on the top.
And it just didn't look appetizing. It didn't seem, and you just weren't, so it was peanut butter and jelly. Well, I don't even know we had peanut butter because
No, we did not yet, did we? We used to get it later. But this reason I mentioned that about food, See, we were from the country. My dad, he killed and he had meat for the year. Every type of meat you could possibly have from the hogs, you know. And so Mom gave me a home-cured ham to bring back. And we brought it back. In those days, they left you through with stuff. And boy, we really
We
enjoyed
showed him
that.
a rosary or a scapular, that would do it.
It was funny. At first, she said, well, this food isn't so bad, you know. And after 2 or 3 days, and she says, well, can you buy some other type of food? She couldn't take it anymore because it was the same thing every day. And that's when she decided, along with Agnes Marie, and I don't know how much we were involved in it, that the Navy would give us, the community, extra money to buy the food, and we could cook it ourselves. So that was a breakthrough. And that's when Aquinas started cooking and didn't know how. But that's all right, we made it. It's okay, it was something. But anyway, that blew over, but also we got straightened out about going home because a couple of years later another sister died. Father died, you know, and the same, but she was freer. So the suffering sometimes is terrible, but many times it brings about a good for some reason, and you have to look at it that way. So, well, that brought about quite a bit of changes in the way we lived there too.
And she let us go. Is there a restaurant you could go to?
Yeah. So
Every now and then you can go to a restaurant. And you see, that was all that pre-Vatican. You had to have that permission. Otherwise, like a lot of times, Lee and I would do things according to Hoyle. But the other two were still really in the old regime, and they couldn't get out of that. They were too far advanced in age to be able to feel free and letting go in a country where we didn't know anybody. And
after we finished that era, we were still with the problem. How in the world do we start a school? With what? We had no money. We didn't know where to go. So finally, the Ursuline sisters from Germany, an angel of a sister was Sister Stephanie,
yes,
who worked in another poor area, and indicated to us where we could go and see if we could have desks made. We had no desks. We had nothing to start with.
you don't order desks down there.
No, you can't.
You had to have them made.
Yeah.
So Lee had to do, I guess, architectural little deal here to show him what we wanted, and then had to find the money to get it started on.
That was the big problem.
We had no money.
We had no money.
Well,
The Mission de Lima.
yes,
We went down to the.
Father Garrity, and he was in charge of that Mission de Lima. He was the one that got us down there, actually, and then
It'd be like through the Cardinal.
it was, there were a lot of rich ladies who
Okay.
banded together trying to help out people
They
in
helped
these
us.
places. So they told us they would give us part of the money to get the desk started, and then when they were all finished, they would give us the rest. So the desks were taken care of. Then we had to find books. We had to find somebody who would help pay for the books. Because actually, I mean, that little thing that was made out between the Naval School and ourselves did not provide money. It should have, but it did not provide money for La Legua. So
This is what she's referring to right here. It was well written. The original plan was that the salaries of the sisters teaching in the Navy school were to support both the sisters in the other school, in that school, and those working in Carmen de la Legua. That never happened. Never happened. And in 1968, we had a government coup. They kept them. We didn't even know. We never saw a penny of it. We never saw an inch or a soul of it. The other sisters in the Navy house.
2 sisters at the
Yeah.
Navy school.
They had no notion of what was going on. They only came out to our place, I think, one time.
One time.
Well,
And
living like they wanted to, free and nothing to worry
Yeah.
about. And
Yeah.
they didn't have to worry about money.
went-
They didn't have to pay anything except the food.
To and from school.
So it was not understood. Another big lack of no clarification of anything. So we battled through that for several years. But some of the people, like Martha said, were extraordinarily kind to us. We even wrote to our folks
Yeah.
to help us. And that was terrible. Our community, our Office of Finances would not give us one penny because the setup in Peru was to take care of itself, and they didn't give an inch. Well, we sacrificed thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars over the years. You had people down there with masters, but that was a problem for Martha and me with the school. But she ran all over God's creation. We got a car. We didn't.
Finally,
The Navy gave the car to the sisters, was it not?
I thought we bought it. I thought in the States sent us the money to do that because we found out it was so difficult to get around without a car. Today you wouldn't want a car down there, but then it was necessary, especially for us to get.
We had to walk.
We had to come out of the Navy hospital, make a right, walk down that street, or get a bus down to the end of the street, and then get out there and then get a collectiva or whatever, or people would see us walking in white habits, pick us up and take us out. Right, left us off at the river, and then from the river we had to walk, so 15 blocks in. Well, you know where you get at the end of it. It was about 15 blocks. And all the dogs were around. And
Oh, I know one famous one she remembers about the dogs walking back that road. She'd always carry a stick. And we were walking back one day. And these dogs, they were all loose, always all loose out on
And
and they
they're
were
hungry.
coming after, yeah. And they were coming towards us, and she kept waving her stick and yelling, "Estoy izquierdo, estoy izquierdo." She meant, I'm scared. It was saying, I'm left, I'm left. And the poor dogs, they didn't come near though, but that stick.
people didn't know what I was saying. Well, you're left, so what?
Peruvians didn't hear us, they said, sure, but anyway, that was funny.
But yeah, that's how we had to get out there every day, the amount of time. But going back to that, how soon school started, she came back at Christmas time. So we didn't do anything till January, till after Christmas. We had from January, February, and March we started school.
And all paperwork with the ministry, it was terrible.
Getting those desks done, getting books, getting the place painted. I don't know how we did it in 2.5 months. I have no clue how we did it.
Yeah, in the classrooms.
That was that.
Yeah, but the paperwork for the Peruvian educational system was pessime. It was awful. It was so underdeveloped and so, like, in Peru, you had to have a stamp for everything that went on. But you didn't get the stamp at the same room or the same table. No, you could floor 4, floor 2, and then look for the person. Oh, he's out for lunch.
Or it's time for coffee break.
Yeah.
And believe me,
Yeah.
you don't do anything during coffee break. You sit there and watch them drink their coffee.
Well, this signature is not the same as on your carnet. We had to have identification. So I had to have a letter saying I am Placidus and Leah Kirchner before I could do anything with the Ministry of Education. It was the biggest mess we ever would.
In here, we
How
had
we
her
ever
going.
survived, I don't know.
We had her going down almost every day.
terrible. But I had a wonderful, wonderful group of people that accompanied. You know, that they were so kind and graceful to us, and I tell you, patient. You know, and there we were, couldn't hardly speak the languages, trying to get the Loro Oficial to start a school. It was the grace of God, I tell you. It was but anyway, she did all the driving and all that kind of stuff, and then I would try to do the paperwork. And
the ladies down there, the ones who had guarded the property, knew some ins and outs among the higher brass, and they knew about the wife of the president, Bellaiundi.
Right.
And they took me there, and we asked for money. And she gave us money, and she gave us clothing from, I guess, Caritas or something like that. Anyway, we did get help from her. I think it was the wife of the president, Bellaiundi. These ladies had gotten to know a lot of people guarding that land. They had to go through lots of different people in order to make sure that land stayed there under their protection. So I remember they took me into her. Somehow we got an appointment with her, and I'm sure it was through them.
It was like 3,000 soles at that time, and that would have been a lot of money for us.
That was a lot of money, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was those beginning years. That was till '68 when. Well, we taught a year. The two of us taught.
But the kids got scholarships after they finished 8th grade.
5 of them.
So to go to good schools.
Just the first year, but that was enough, wasn't it, Martha?
That started them, right?
It did. It was. They were probably the best in mathematics, I guess. No, but after us came some wonderful. All of our teachers were new except one. And that's the good things that started happening among our sufferings and everything else we went through, because we started doing things that were not very common there, you know. And over a period of a few years, we had, like, the two that came after us had a plaza. That was a goodie. And then 2 more, and then we had to start paying, too. But in the process of these teachers having these new teachers, we started meetings every week. And they had no child psychology in their studies. So we bring that in. And then they begin opening up and coming up with creative ideas of how to do things. We started things they had never heard of in Peru. Open house, where you allowed the parents to come.
Report cards we gave to the parents.
Yeah, wait a minute. Oh, here's some of the things. We would visit the homes of the children, too. That weekly teachers meeting, lesson plans. You know how they would come in? They would teach, and then they would go home and write up what they did. That was the system. It really was. It was sad. And so we started with lesson plans, and it was very hard on them. But afterwards, they loved them. They felt so at peace on Monday morning. They knew what they were going to do, and what little dilly they were going to use, what song, you know. And and then they had. When I went home, my classmate was a music teacher, Serena, and she gave me all these little rhythm band things, and I brought them back. We started a rhythm band. And then we started extra classes in music and art. Teachers gave extra time in the afternoon to the children. All kind of things blossomed. Then a new system came in from Chile, Peru. What was that guy's name?
Chile, South America.
Yeah, from Chile. He brought in the alphabetizing. The women, none of them hardly went to school. So we started alphabetizing them. Meaning, you teach them the alphabet. They didn't even know the alphabet. They didn't know how to write their names. Mothers of the children. The mothers of the children. Or any young woman, too, that wanted. But
most of them
the
couldn't
mother.
sign their name.
They couldn't even write their name. So this started buzzing around. And after the 68 takeover, the Peruvian coup, remember that?
We went to town that day because
Yeah.
we had a free day.
It was awful. Yeah. It was a military government takeover, the leftist party. It scared the liver out of a lot of people.
Including some of our sisters.
Definitely them. Yeah, definitely them. And that's when some chose to go home. They were afraid it was going to be communists. But this government did a lot of good. They ousted a lot of the USA businesses that were taking over the little people's things in Peru. Peru was being squashed by your few rich. It's like here, really typical, I think. And the education system picked up after that. And then our school became like a pilot school. They were wanting our teachers to help other teachers, period of time. Our first graduation class after you had transition was like first grade, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. That's as far as you went. Middle school was something else. But when we had our first graduation, we had 5 girls to get in. The wealthiest, I don't know if, well, I guess the wealthiest, but not because of wealth, because they were considered a very good school. The Immaculate Heart of Sisters had it in Callao. They got scholarship, the first 5 scholarships. And one of the boys got it at Antonia, Carlos
San
Carasona.
Antonio.
Yeah. So all that suffering, and God was amidst of it all. You could just sense it. It was hard, and it was difficult, and sometimes we were crying, sometimes we were laughing, sometimes we were just about, and the teachers were so wonderful, I think. They really were.
Yes, we had good teachers.
Young people.
And very dedicated.
Energetic. And
they stayed with us.
Yes.
They weren't, just come for a while and then left. No, they stayed.
One of them is still with us. Carmen, our first hired teacher was Vicki. Yeah, but those were the days. But how we ever did it, I don't know. She did most of the running around as far as all the materials stuff.
She hadn't learned to drive yet.
And I just, I spent most of my time down in the stereo.
We started, it had been started, a little clinic.
Oh, that's another thing that she took on.
Juana was in charge of that, and she had a proving doctor come a couple times a week. And then I started helping her, and one of the Gray sisters came over, because I wasn't a nurse. I didn't know what those medicines were. And so she divvied it out and put English underneath of what they were for. So if the doctor asked me for something, well, then I kind of know, because that was written on there. And then I took a course in practical nursing, I guess, what you call it, the very beginnings of it. And then I did catechetical work, because we could go into the public schools. Mm-hmm. Yes, you could teach religion. And so we had a school right next door to us. And so I would teach religion over there during the week. When we got the teachers, then I stopped working in the school. Mm-hmm. Went over to the clinic and to catechesis work.
And we kept up the pastoral work completely, and a lot of that fell on Martha, really. The catechetical work.
Because you were principal of the school.
Yeah, I tried
so
to be.
You were. So you were kind of more tied to the school at that point than you.
Yeah, but only during school hours, because on weekends we started youth groups, and then actually the school hour was from morning was 12. That was considered
1.
The afternoons, no. So we got our teachers to come back and do extra artwork, music, and things they didn't get in the morning. Yeah. So you were sort of busy. That. But at the same time, why do I want to tell you that?
We had no water or electricity during this
Yeah,
time
that was
either.
another thing.
So the children we sent out to the river when they had to go to the bathroom.
On the rocks. Not to the river, but river.
rocks.
Yeah.
That's what they were used to doing in their own
It was
homes.
awful. It was
And
awful.
then electricity, we had to get a generator. Now, Father, I don't know where we got the first one or how it
It was
was,
John
but
Call.
through him. But we bought one afterwards because I have in here where we went out to buy a generator. And we had to look around, of course, to get it in our price range. And so we got a generator, but still we were going back and forth now for 5 years, wasn't it? We were
It was
back
a
and
long
forth. We did not move out there until about 5 years. When they moved into their convent, we had made some kind of, you may know this better than I can remember. We bought a house that somebody was trying to sell out there.
69.
69. And so then we moved in out there.
Right after the coup.
Okay,
'Cause
so
the other-
before that, you were in Lima at the Naval School living there
Right,
and
yeah.
just every day doing
Every
that
day.
bus and the walking,
Yeah.
Well, when we
beating
got
off the
car,
dogs.
But when we got the car, we got a Vauxhall. I don't know who suggested that or why. I think it was in our price range again. But it wasn't made for the barrio. It wasn't made for rocks.
Yeah.
And every week I had it in there. We had to take the car in. We had to take the car in. So it ended up being us having to do that first round, bus, collectivo, walk.
But then you got the Travelall. It was a bigger, heavier car.
But that was after we were out there.
Yeah. They were nice.
Now the back of that has been built on.
It
Ours-
wasn't at all finished when we did it. Only one part was finished. But anyway,
But it was it was well done.
yes,
But
yes.
and the
yeah.
family wanted to move into a better area.
Yeah.
So this was their way out.
Yes.
They were a lovely family, and
Or to this day, friends. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
and so they had put, well, the floors. The floor is the same as what we got it, tile floor like. So they had started out well, and so we really did get something good.
But our sisters from the Navy School, most of them went home, except Kathy and Lana Sue.
Kathy Neely.
And Lana Sue, who was with us. Fitzgerald. They were afraid of it was going to be communist, But we weren't afraid of that at all.
And then some of them also felt that they didn't come 5,000 miles or how many it is to teach English as if they were in the United States. They wanted to come out with us, but we couldn't handle.
Yeah,
we
two of
couldn't
them.
handle all of them.
Two of them definitely wanted out there.
And they felt coming all this way, they wanted to work in another atmosphere. And so, and the Navy did build them a convent. They only lived in it 1 year.
It was supposed to be built the first year they were there. Really, that was a condition.
Yeah.
First year.
And how many years did it take?
5.
5 or 6, yeah. Okay.
And the brothers, they got their house fit first. It was 14 and a half years, I think, somewhere around there.
Okay.
41 years?
41 years.
When Martha, I think it's important, Father, there were priests that were very good to us. and she had to go looking every week to find a priest to say the mass, on Sundays after
And
Father
one
John
good thing
crossed
about
off.
that, I had 1 week we get it from the language school, English speaking. The other week came from Spanish. And the boys would ask as I drove out to go pick them up, "Who are you going to get this week, sister? Spanish or English?" I said, "English." "Oh, we'll go to confession. Spanish? No, not going."
The youth they were so unique. That was another area we worked with a lot with the youth. And to this day, they still meet. The group of, they call them Catholic Action Group, they still meet. Those that are around, So,
And when we come down, they all get us together.
yeah.
Right, that were in the youth group. You had a couple, I think.
Susanna was she?
Yeah,
Susanna.
Susanna,
I don't know of any. The Rabelos might have.
yeah, some of the Ravelos, yeah. But I was going to mention that for some other more important issue.
We were talking about the priest coming out. We had.
Oh, Father Mike Bafaro was very good to us. She met him through language school. She went back for a course, for a refresher.
I tried to do it.
Well, you did.
Yeah.
Then we got involved through Father Mike. He was a very dynamic, justice-minded person, and we had already been exposed to the theology of liberation through Gustavo Gutierrez. So that changed our policies, our values, big turnaround for a lot of basic reasons and where we put our energies. We kept the school, but our energies went into what all the injustices in this parish. I mean, in the Pueblo Jóvenes, it was awful. No lights, no water, no streets, no what do you call it? Correo? Mail, nothing, So they were issues that our youth participated in and bringing about too. And the men, Mike was good with the men and we were good with the women. We had at one time 500 women in the Mothers Clubs, they were called. Promotion of the Family, it was called. And they were just go-getters, and they saved the lives of the families by getting together and cooking together and making a common meal, and then they would come and pick it up. That went on. Oh, it was awful. It was awful. Yeah.
I got to go to Ibla, which was in Ecuador, for 6 months to study under that, the new Vatican II, which the bishops down there converted into their own, instead of theology. Well, it was the same theology of liberation, but in the people's language. And so I got enculturated up there, and especially in the Comunidades de Base, which she's practically speaking. We started little groups in different areas of the barrio, and they met once a week and decided on ways of how they could help the community grow. And out of one of those was in San Rafael, we got water. They put the water in over there. So they did different types of things like that to better the community in which they were living.
And little by little, they managed water. We got lights. We got a mail.
Streets.
Yeah, streets. Yes.
Yeah,
And
but there.
it was a long struggle, but it was worth it. And
And there was more going back and forth.
the beginnings were.
They concentrated it right in their own community, but little by little. But we did have ladies who went down to the wharf every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, get the fish, and bring it up to sell the fish. And well, that was one of my specialties, is take around to the market every day and get food, eat food. I love the food.
Dyed them gray. didn't they?
gray and
Gray.
came out spotty. Wherever there was a grease spot or something like that, that spot showed up. So here we were.
Then we were allowed to cut them off a few inches.
We did for a while.
Yeah.
Wintertime. Food, whatever they didn't sell, they ate that night. And the socks, I guess, I don't know what they ate that night.
Then they had an attitude also that they, whatever God gives them,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
It was
Very
something
religious, yes.
within. I remember when we did have, like, this was in the pastoral area later on. We would try to get some of the marriages fixed up that could be, you know. And I recall this one time, this couple had been together 40 years, and they wanted to marry, you know. But it was common law, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it just seemed, but they wanted that blessing, you know.
And we tried to push marriage too. Like, and that's another one of our push. Well, what'd they say? Do you remember what he said? Father asked him if it was time yet, and he said, "I'm not sure
Oh,
yet."
yeah, that was it. That was it.
I'll never forget that.
That's
No,
the
I
mountains.
never got to the mountains.
So what compelled you to decide to leave then?
Well, it had a lot to do with the times. This Father Mike Bafaro, who we worked with, was quite involved in governmental things and trying to overthrow, in a sense, not a lot outwardly, but kind of push the kids. And the kids would make these little tacks, put them out in the street so the cars would go over them would, well,
Get a
they
flat
go
tire?
Flat, yes. And things like that. And subversively they would do. But they went to these marches. And we used to go to the marches with them. And you get in some of these things with, you knew the police were going to come, but somehow or other we were still young. So I got involved in that. And one day one of the boys came to me and said, "Are you going to the thing today?" He said, "You know, the police are going to be there." And I said, "I just can't go." And in my mind, I couldn't go. I knew the police would be there. If I'd get caught, I'd end up in the prison. I'd already seen Lori Gansha. I had no clue or no wanting to go there, not wanting it at all. And afterwards, I got to thinking about what I said. And I said to myself, if I can't be a part of what's going on, I shouldn't be here. And it was then that I began to make up my mind that I couldn't do some of those things. I just didn't want to do them. I mean, I felt they were good things to do, but I knew that the end, and some of the kids would get, some of the older ones would get in prison. I just couldn't see myself doing that. I backed away from that, mainly because of the prison. It scared me. So it was after that I began to think, and there was time to go back. And I also thought, if I'm going to go back, this is the time to go. It was in my 40s, late 40s. It'd be time to get a job back here or do something more constructive back here. So that's when I kind of made up my mind.
Mike left in 76, you left in
I was in 78.
78. A civil government came back in.
And that priesthood party was a big no-no in our area anyway. A priesthood party, and that was kind of rampant. And the idea was, and they must have been in power then. I think the priestess were in power in that year, and that's what they were trying to get rid of. And we had a mimeograph, and they could tell through that. The boys would run off stuff like at 11 or 12 at night. I'd go over and open that door, and they would do their
It was Mike's secretary doing that, Victor Torrejon.
Yes,
Yeah.
Victor. And
Doing flyers and things,
Just
political stuff
like some of them were doing the tax.
on the church mimeograph.
And see, we got frightened about that because I don't think Mike was he. Yeah, I guess he was still there, but we were kind of frightened that they would trace that. Some ways that you can trace that back, I don't know how they are, but they could trace it back. And we were frightened that we'd get involved, our parish would get involved in that. And I got a job in Reading, Pennsylvania, working with the mushroom workers.
That was interesting.
Mexicans. From then on, it was all Mexicans, mostly. Puerto Ricans were part of it, but the Mexicans were the big workers. Well, I wanted to keep up the Spanish. It took me all those years to learn it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to lose it. Besides, I liked working with them. My problem was I was afraid. I'm not one of those out on the front lines. I did we went to some of those
Rallies.
down there in Peru where we had to run. They would bring out the water.
Well, they watered us down in front of our own embassy one time.
Yeah, and you'd run. You'd have to get away.
It would blow you over. It was so strong. It came with tanks, with water. And it was scary.
It got to
Things
the point.
were changing then.
Even today, I don't want to go to rallies. I mean, it's fine, those who want to, but I had my sufficient time doing that. I did it, and I just can't do it anymore.
Well, I stayed. I asked to stay by myself, and I stayed a year and a half. I thought there were still a lot of possibilities in the parish work. The youth had really taken hold of things, not just in the political and on the religious side too. With the catechetical program was doing well. We had leaders in it, that was perfect. And I saw possibilities of letting them take the lead. I didn't have to be there to tell them what to do. They knew what to do. But encouragement and see that school could continue on.
And when the sisters went back and left the naval school, we were on our own.
Yeah.
And they thought that I guess from the tuition, that we should be able to support ourselves.
The tuition paid to the school you all started?
Yeah, I think they thought that should be, we should make that at such a point that you could. But, I mean, they put us out there, and you couldn't raise the tuition.
Well, the kids, like 4 solis,
Yeah. That's
And so
thing.
how do you pay a teacher?
Yeah.
And it was very, very difficult. And to today, I don't think it's easy financially, truthfully,
No.
although they do have a lot more help because of certain circumstances and different ways of running things,
Mm-hmm.
And once that the Peru mission was put into a special fund, that is when things at least became peaceful economically, But that didn't happen right away. It happened a long time after.
You were up in the mountains.
Yeah, it was a long time. But anyway, I felt that there was a future with the school, and I stayed a year and a half, and I met some wonderful people. I met a friend, a Colombian sister, Joanna Rufa. She was a chair. She was an occupational therapist and went out to seek crippled children, handicapped children that were sometimes I'd go with her sometime, and I would almost cry. You'd find a little kid tied to a leg of a bed so he couldn't get out. Or you'd find a grown person in a box. And so I learned a lot just being with accompanying her sometime, and then she'd come over and accompany me. And we became very, very good friends. And I'd leave a note hanging for her, and she'd leave a note hanging for me. She had a key to the house. And the people were so good to me. They didn't want me to be alone. They always wanted somebody to sleep in the house with me, you know. But I was never afraid. I was never afraid. And I don't know if things started gelling in 1979. My mother died, so I went home for that. And I met Sue Scharpenberger.
Uh-huh.
And I was talking to her about the mission, and she came to visit and then decided to come down. That was a year and a half afterwards. But in that year and a half, the people took over, which I think was a very good thing. And I think that's what we should be about. And they did. So when Sue came, well, then the lot went on between 80 and 86. She wanted to go on her own up to Cahabamba. And she went up there, I think it was 2 years, wasn't it?
Then I'm lost.
In the meantime, Betty came. And she went up there with, and they did not stay in Cahabamba. The bishop was telling them about San Miguel, who had never had religious there before. So he suggested, well, actually they wanted to go to a higher place, but he didn't want them to because of the beginning of this shining path was starting. A lot of, what do you call it, rioting and unrest with Gustavo.
Gustavo.
I was in the 5th grade before I knew I needed glasses. See, we were from the country too, and you didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought everybody saw a blurred board or 4 candles on the altar instead of 2, you know. We formed a group, it was called Orientation for the Bienestar del Niño, for the Educado. It was orientation of a little child, and maybe he had a slight problem, a problem that could be helped by another woman or a person or anybody. And so these ladies, every Monday morning we would meet, and we got orientated. And then, of course, with Nancy, I got loads and loads of games and things that she had made for children. I'd get the ladies to do it, then we'd get a little problem kid. One of them would take it out and do things with it, won them over, you know. It was a wonderful thing, wonderful thing.
Now, Nancy wasn't there, right?
No, but she sent it down.
We worked together before I left. We did all kind of game stuff with kids because you wanted it to be fun, you know.
Yeah.
And she kept feeding into that for me down there, and that was really good. And the teachers loved it too, so it was nice.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that's pretty neat. So that sounds like that was just life-changing, though, for some of them to be able to all of a sudden see
it was
better.
And it was good for the women how to treat their own children too.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. But getting back to the 80s, that's when the Sendero was getting hot. And I think Sue at one time was on the blacklist. I know Mike was. Father Mike. But she didn't do anything because she didn't speak out, and we weren't doing any active work with them, you know. But it depends on Like we did Theology of Liberation. Of course, that was absolutely the opposite of Sendero, you know. So whatever it was there. Well, in '88, that's when the community wanted us to first start a formation program, you know, for the religious.
And at that point, was there anyone else living with you in Callao from the community? Okay.
No, a year and a half. Yeah. And it went fast, I must say. You know. But Sue had been a formation leader. I had no experience in it. All I know is I just loved the youth. That was okay, but that wasn't reason enough to go into that, you know. And so we had to switch places. She came to Callao. Also, we were starting secondary school. I was not prepared for secondary education. I didn't know what all it should involve. And that was so important to give these youth what they deserved, you know. And she could do that. So it worked out for the school, it worked out for the formation. And so I went up to the mountains, happy as a lark to go back to my family roots. Yeah, but that's how that happened. And then she continued in Callao with it. And the school has really become a pilot school for years. It's just, and it's not because they have a lot, it's because of their values, their core values. And it's so important. And to invigorate the teachers to look at the justice issues and the things that affect the daily lives of the children. But there's one issue I think we have not mentioned. It is so important in our history there. Kathy Neely was a speech therapist. And in our barrio, in the beginning years, the families were ashamed if they had a child that was handicapped or had any kind of defect. It was a castigo. It was a curse. Curse. Yes. And to get that across, it was so hard with our families that it's not as something physical, it's something that just happens, you know. Kathy started working first with the speech. She was a speech therapist, had training, you know, and she started a little school within our school for the speech, and there were quite a few in our barrio. Right,
she went around visiting, trying to
we
find.
visited every home almost, you know, and she had a classroom in the back, and then we got her another one in the church. They didn't like that.
Over to the center.
Yeah. Oh, I have to tell you this story. She had this one little boy. Oh, his name just now skipped me. Oh, darn it. Well, he had a handicap, you know, a speech handicap. And she had him, and they were in the back in that straw hut, you know, and a mouse got in there, and Kathy jumped up on the chair. Well, you should have seen. Oh, what's his name? Darn it! Oh, I can see him.
Jose.
No. Oh. Anyway, he would retell the story of Kathy jumping up on that chair and her glasses and her hair. It was unreal. It was so funny. He would just be hysterical the way he would take her off, you know. Kathy still can laugh about that. But she did a good job, and then she got connected with the Columban priest who had a larger area of speech and hearing.
Yes.
And
she was over in the center.
Condavilla.
Yeah, but she had this
in the
center,
community center. Yeah.
and he used to come over there,
Yes.
and then they translated.
Austin Galvey, Galvey,
Garvey.
something like that. Yeah, she did a wonderful job.
Yep.
She started in our area, but it was started already by the other Columban fathers in Condavilla in another area. They joined together, which was good, and so it had a better basis and more opportunities. And we tried to integrate them in our school, but our teachers were not prepared enough to draw that child out so that it could feel a part. It didn't work. We tried it though. It didn't work. Yes,
Yes.
a long time. Then she came up to San Miguel. And I left in 95, and then she stayed on 2 years. And I really didn't want her to give up the parish, but I think she was encouraged otherwise, and she did. But then they went to Yukiyayo and Huancayo, and it didn't work out. They tried another area, you know. She went back to San Miguel and started working with the handicapped there. And Anna was great support for her there. 25 years, yes. And that's how the Centro de Rehabilitación came about. Yeah, but right now, see with this COVID, she started her own business. That was a backfire thing on them.
Wow.
Yeah. But that happened. They had to look out, I guess, for their future in a different way. But yeah.
In the same area?
Huh?
In
Yeah,
this-
right there in San Miguel. Yeah.
Ooh.
But we had some wonderful friends that supported that center. Some wonderful friends. Oh, we did. We had 300 and something little caserillos, little villages.
gosh.
Yeah. When I left about 15 or 18 cuadernos. Betty and I started she had her own, I had my own. Wherever we went, we wrote up what we did, why we went, and the paraliturgy that we did.
Baptisms and things like that you put in there?
Oh, I don't know how many books of baptisms, really. And the bishop gave me permission to marry 2 times. It's a blessing. It's not, you don't do anything, it's a blessing.
Oh, they marry themselves.
Service.
truthfully.
Yeah, it's service. But the baptisms and taking communion to the sick, that was, I guess that was the most fulfilling thing that I ever did. Because they were so isolated and had nothing. In the mountains, you'd have to walk miles in the mud and dirt, but it didn't seem to be a problem, you know? Mm-hmm. It wasn't fun, especially if you fell in it. We've done that, Betty and I both. But they were wonderful days. And the people, the rural catechists, these people sacrifice. They were called the prayers. They kept the faith alive on one, I don't know which night of the week it would be. They would travel to the other people, one house, and they have the rosary together. They had no special place. A lot of them didn't have little chapels yet. And that's what the rural catechists did many times. They helped get the people together, the community together, to build a simple little chapel. And that brought them together more so. And then they would have community meetings there. And whenever we went, we always had a community meeting. Otherwise, you're just going and filling in like the priest would come in. That not really helping them. And those rural catechists were sacrificial people. They'd walk miles and miles. And then we had workshops with them once a month for years. And finally, a classmate of mine, God bless her, she gave me the money to get them all a Bible. Oh my God. It was like a gold, piece of gold, you know. And then they had special books that the Obispo put out, the liturgy of the word, you know, like the cycle 1, A, B, C, whatever. And they never had it. And they were supposed to be doing services in their little villages, but had nothing to go by. They'd sit there and copy it out, you know. So finally, I forgot who that came about. We had some mighty kind people that collaborated, and we got them that book. And so it just, and some of them couldn't read too well, and then others did. So we had reading classes, and then you just fill in. And I had some wonderful visitors in my time, besides my family and people like that. But this ex-student of mine, I taught her, Linda.
Oh, yeah.
I taught her in 1958 in Cumberland, Maryland. And she had crossed eyes. She wore glasses. In those days, not too many kids wore glasses, you know, little blonde. And I would see her out in the hall all the time. I had the second grade here, and Miss Sitter, Nancy Sitter, had the first grade here. And this one day I came out there and I said, "What are you doing out in the hall?" She said, "Well, I was talking, and Miss Sitter said I had to get out." And I said, "Well, what were you talking about?" She said, "I was just talking, you know." And she is a talker. And I said, "Well, And she started crying. So in those days, you could rub their tummies, you know, and like you couldn't touch them nowadays. And I said, "Well, I'm so sorry for you." I said, "But you know, I would love to teach you. Maybe I'll get you next year. But if you talk, I don't know if I could. I don't know if you could stay there like that. Maybe I'd have to put you out in the hall too, and I wouldn't want to do that." And she said, you know, like that. She didn't know what to say really. And so lo and behold, the next year I do get her. And she remembered it. And she was cute, but she had a horrible home life. Critical home life. Violent. Oh, violent, yeah. And you didn't know that until later. And I always had the custom, I had to give them a little turkey sticker or something, you know, when they did something. And she's extremely bright, but at that time, you would have never known it. And this one day, she got a turkey sticker on her math paper. She took it home. She was so proud of that, and her mom tore it up. Oh. She remembered that, you know. But what she made the connection with me was the hall and the turkey sticker. Well, we got reconnected on one of my home visits, and after that, she just kept up and back and forth and came down 5 times to visit, a month each time. She didn't come just to sit there and see and meet the people around. She got involved with the rural catechists. She loved them, you know. And she got involved with the associates. She learned who they were. She went out. She'd walk miles with me to the different caserias. It was just a different relationship that built up, you know. And we've been friends ever since. She's one of them that just came. She's a riot now, but she's highly intelligent. She's a nurse, went through nursing and things, you know. Has a daughter. She had 2 miscarriages, crib deaths, like. They were horrible. She almost lost her mind. And then she had a daughter who is an excellent teacher, she claims, and now 1 grandson. And just happy as lark. But she was just here for a week. Well, we had the house. See, we lived in a sacristy first. Did you see that sacristy? The house. Well, it was an old hotel, and the teachers have it hard. They have to rent a room when they have to leave their homes and the like. They come from all over. They have to rent a room through the week, and then they go home on week. Yeah. So this type of hotel had been used by teachers, and there were like burnt places in the floor and all kind of. It was a rundown place. church in Germany is very active for missionaries, and they give funds to the priest or sisters for living conditions. And they're the ones who supplied the money for us to buy that hotel and fix it up. On 2 different occasions, our community did not. When we needed furniture and things, we sent out a letter, and I still have the letter and everything with pictures, to our families mainly. Our community did not hardly give us a penny. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth. Maybe shouldn't say this, but there was one treasurer that just didn't want us there at all. They just didn't want us there.
They just didn't see the point.
No. The German church helped us with that. And so now the building must remain with the diocese. Be sold, resold, or used for something else. It has to be for religious priests or nuns or whoever. And so the living conditions then really changed, because then we formed the girls called the Comunidad Angelina. Oh gosh, we had 25, 30 young girls that we would meet monthly. They make out their own plan for the month. We would have different ones to do the theme. They really grew. And some of these were teachers, and some were just girls had to work in the homes of the teachers. You know, they were like little slaves. They didn't even want to give them permission to go to a meeting like that, you know. And they did some beautiful work. They'd go out to the campo with us. They were real little missionary. And to this day, they still send emails and messages. So anyway, it was worth it all.
Yeah.
It was worth it all. And they still have plenty to do. Anna is there in San Miguel right now. But she's a nature lover. And also in San Miguel, it's a very difficult. San Miguel people are good-hearted, and yet they're conflictive. Many people there are very conflictive. Politically, somewhat, more so. Who's better than thou? And many of them are teachers, ex-teachers, so they have privileges that the common folks that come to town don't, you know. And you have a lot of mountain people there, a whole lot of mountain people. Majority are. And so it's just, there's not a real true respect for them. There just isn't.
Not a real community.
No, it's not. It's not a knitted community, no matter how hard you try. Yes. And that's why you don't spend a lot of time. We did have a catechetical program. We had these young girls. They were our catechists. They were wonderful. The family catechetical program, we had that going. Some of them were active with taking care of jail people. A couple of those that were younger would go out with us to the campo. They were sacrificial people. Very sacrificial. And then others, just, I don't know, it's very different. And many were so good to us. They're lovable people, but there's this conflict. One of our young girls turned out to be the mayor for 2 years. A couple of years ago, yeah, Alia. It is.
It is them.
Strictly conservative. One is more than the rest. Cayo is not.
Yeah.
And
Father
Paco
Cayo
definitely is not. The activities and things are very antiquado-like, you know. It seems like we're teaching religion.
Well, being so far up there in the mountains, it's gonna take them a while to get into something new. It's so conservative,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot. I mean, you all did what you could, but you weren't there with them all the time out in the mountain area. So it's gonna take a while to get that up this to now, if they ever
And I
get
think
up.
that might just be a natural divide between the people in the town versus the people out in the
That's what it is.
because they live so differently. The people in the country, I mean, some of them still have the dirt floors, no electricity.
Nothing.
They have the superstitions because Kathy said that was a big
Yeah,
issue,
it
getting
is.
people to bring people in for rehab because they just were like, it's a curse. They have
Yes,
to live
yes.
with it.
Yeah.
So that could just be sort of a natural thing that happens too, you know?
Well, that is where the conflict is.
So,
And many of them never get to the city to live, and they wouldn't want to. I don't think really. You know,
I mean-
many have though. Many have left.
have left and
Oh
gone.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. They have. I forgot what they call them. They're groups in Lima and different parts. Trujillo, Cajamarca, San Miguelina, or something.
But when you think about it, that's how we started
Yeah.
back in '64. They were
Right.
all from the
Yeah,
mountains.
all over.
That was that invasion.
Especially that black area. I forgot the parish. We had a lot of black people, and they were really, I think, up and doing themselves.
When you say black people, what do you mean?
Well, the black.
They
They
were
weren't Indian or anything. They were black, and they were
where were they from?
in Lima. They came from La Victoria. Now, where they came from before that, I don't know.
Okay.
See,
Where were they in our parish?
huh?
Were they in our parish?
We had some. Do you remember those young boys that would take us out and have them do the procession and things in the outskirts?
That's something I...
But there was no conflict. We could not see any conflict, really.
Well, there is a big mixture, right, of ethnicities
yeah.
there. I mean, you can see it in the people
all
too.
over, yeah.
You know, there's
Right.
not one look. You know, I mean, you have some that you think of very typical, the look of the Andes Mountains, but
Yeah,
then you saw so many other features.
That aren't.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So, well, anything else you want to?
well,
Felt like y'all shared a lot.
we were always hungry.
Yeah.
And we like to have sweet stuff because, you know, you didn't get that. So the Nofrios was right up the street. But they also had little carts that went around town. Ice cream.
Okay.
It was the only ice cream they had. And anyway, you could, in the little carts, you could buy one. But that day we couldn't find any little carts, so we went to the main store.
The factory was.
Yes, right up the street. And no, they couldn't sell them one by one. They had to sell them in a pack. Well, we thought, what are we going to do? Because we got to take this back, and we can't let them know that this is where we were spending our money. So we got the pack. I think there must have been 8 in there.
It was too many. I know that.
So we each had one, so that left 6. Each had another one, that left 4. Well, we couldn't do any more.
We went over to the Columbus. Remember?
So
they
that
weren't
was the
home.
donuts. That was the donuts.
Another one.
And so we took these home and put them in our cupboard, but
Oh,
we
yeah.
knew we had to eat it for the rest of the night, otherwise they'd melt and they'd be all in our cupboards. So there we were with all the ice cream. Oh, and then this lady, this Earlene Sukar that she had mentioned before, she had a bakery,
Hampton's Donuts.
and we were going to go over to Columbus, so we said, let's take 24 donuts. When we gets over there, they're not home. And we have 24 donuts. What are we going to do? Can't let them know we got 24 donuts.
Closet again.
They went in the closet and we kept eating donuts until they're coming out of our ears. Anyway, we ate. It was 8. That meant there was 4. We each had. It was 8 in there that we each had
So
4.
we handled
But
that.
they were fudgesicles is what they
They
were.
weren't
And then
funny things happen. Oh,
those donuts, of course, they last a little bit longer, but too long and they get stale.
Sure.
But you see, this was a part of that pre-Vatican II system. Whereas the superiors were the one that told you if you could have donuts or not. But in our case, you know, we were alone in this other area, so we took it upon ourselves to be our own, but still living with somebody.
And you were-
And then living in that house where they were going to tell us. So anything we did on the side had to be kept secret.
they lived.
We're letting it out.
They lived on soup and crackers,
Yes.
and it just
And that was their age, they could do it.
yeah.
60, 70 years old.
Well, a lot of funny things happened. Martha could giggle a little better than me, but we had a lot of fun things. I remember at school kids, they were funny too. I had a set of twins, Salguera kids, girls, and I couldn't tell them apart. I really couldn't. They were almost identical. And this one day, our windows were real low. I don't even know if we had glass in them, but anyway, this one day, I saw her going past the window, and she waves at me, and I wave at her, and I said, well, where is she going? She went home.
Oh, you thought she was going to the bathroom.
Oh, I thought she was going to the bathroom, and so I waved at her like that. I said, "Where'd she go?" She went home, you know, things like that. And then what was that? Something else. You ought to remember something. You
Well,
had fun
one I
things to
remember
happen.
is this little girl, and she was telling me something I could not figure out what she was telling me. And I go over to Lee and I said, Lee, you figure out what she wants to say. She said she's telling you her name. That's how bad I was in Spanish. And then I had one day I saw this eraser flying up down the aisle with a string on it. Here this girl had lent her eraser to somebody up front, but she wanted to make sure she got it back, so she had put a string. She pulled it back when she wanted it. You know, we were still in the habit, and we had those
Little
pockets that
dictionary.
were big. But the little dictionary that you can get now, and I put it on my desk.
Me too.
And if I was trying to look for a word or thinking, the kids knew that, and they said, "Dictionary, sister, dictionary."
It was awful.
When we went to the stores
He
to
was
get
so patient
something,
with us.
when we went to the store to buy something, like something for the desk or something like that, we'd take the dictionary and show them the word.
Yeah.
Didn't know the word, but that's how we did it.
I remember the first year. Thank goodness we only had to teach that first year. We substituted English. I mean, we taught English afterwards, but not the class, you know. And we were finishing up. It was December. We finished in December there. No, it was getting ready for Christmas. Oh, it was Feast of the Blessed Mother. That's what it was. And I had been writing out. That's what we did the night before. You'd write out all as much as you could, so you could read it, or at least read it off. You know. I'm going to try to do the religion on the Blessed Mother
Yes.
without my paper. So I think I told you that. And I was teaching about the Blessed Mother conceived sin pescados. All right.
Well,
That's what I wanted to say. And what I got was,
The kids are doing this.
Yeah.
and every time I said it, that's what I would get. I was saying the Blessed Mother was conceived without fish.
Right. Pescados.
So that killed that day. That was my big lesson of the year.
And then we were showing the priest from the chancery, we were showing him around because he was supposed to be
That was
deciding whether.
Bishop Mario.
Oh, okay. So he was supposedly cutting off or checking off the area. And we lived next to fish factories, the anchovies, and when they cleaned the factory, it's a smell you don't want to smell very often. Anyway, it happened when he was there. And so I said, oh, don't worry. I wanted to tell him that's our fish factory. That's our sins burning.
El olor es de nuestros pecados.
Smells from our
The
sins.
odors from our sins, not the factory.
Oh my God! You can imagine what.
That was the bishop there.
Is this what we want to give the land to?
Did he laugh or?
I think he
yeah,
did.
they did.
I think he did.
Wanda.
Well, that was another thing. Talking about that, we didn't know the Spanish that well. So what do? You listen to the people around you. So that's what we did, and then repeat it.
And sometimes you repeated the wrong thing.
And the teachers, Amelia said to us, "Sister, you shouldn't be using that language. It's street language."
One of our teachers, the only one that didn't have a title, Amelia, she was super excellent.
Yeah, she's the one that told us that.
Oh, she was my sidekick. Anyway, she was just so helpful to me, and she understood me enough to straighten it out in good Spanish, and I'll never forget her. She was so kind. Why do I want to tell you that about her? She kept me in tune as to what I could put in a letter, like to the parents. Yeah,
For
she
you
definitely
and-
would. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
correct it and all that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, goodness.
You know, as Lee said, out of a lot of these problems, something good comes.
yeah.
When I came back here to the States and I was working in this part, I was doing everything, but partly in the schools, I wanted to, as a mediator between the teacher and the parent of these children. And the teachers would tell me, "Sister, they're just using terrible language, and I'm not putting up with it." And then I told her my little story, and I said, "You know, those kids are learning from the kids out in the playground and out in the streets. They don't know what they're saying. They're only repeating what they're hearing." And the teacher said, "Well, that sounds, right." I said, "They're not disrespecting you." I said, "They don't know anything else yet." So that was something good, something I had learned myself and could translate it to people up here in the States. Mm-hmm. But they all thought that kids were disrespecting them for the language they were using. I said,
Right.
"They picked it up." I said, "I can tell you." And they think that's cute. They're laughing out there and having a good time. And so what would you think?
I remember one time in language school, and you were trying to remember words, and when we would come back to language school on a Monday, many times the teacher would ask you what you did over the weekend. And they expected you to try to say it in Spanish, And this one time I told her, I said, we celebrated, I thought I was saying we celebrated a birthday with cake, and I said we celebrated a birthday with caca. You know what that is, don't you? Well,
You learned that word, didn't you?
oh,
That's how
and
you
then
learn, right?
Oh,
You learn the
just
word
let me
for
get out of
cake
here. Get out.
real
get out.
quick.
That was terrible. Oh.
Oh gosh, I love it. I love it. Oh my.
Learning that
We had
language.
a lot of fun times too, though. I mean, they were hard times, but we had a lot of fun times with the people. Oh, the
Like-
lady, the children, even the little kids. No matter where you are, you get a hug. Dancing, whether you know how to dance or not.
Doesn't
and
matter.
a young boy would come up and ask an older lady. He didn't care what she looked like. He would dance,
They just wanted to
They
dance.
just, we really formed a beautiful bridge of friendship. And they're still very faithful. Like one of the boys that was in our youth groups, David Caicho.
Who?
David Caicho.
Oh, yeah.
He worked in Pacasmayo, that's way up the Panamericana, on a chicken farm. And he remained faithful, communicating back and forth. Well, I get an email from Blanca's daughter,
I know who you're saying. Yeah.
Hilda.
Hilda, yeah.
And she says, "Oh, David's son died." So this was within 2 days. The circulation of that got to all of those members and to me, that David Caicho's son died. And so what happened? They feed in prayers, sympathy to him immediately. that to me is worth anything you ever went through to form kids, to be with them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all in their 50s now.
Yeah.
Or later, some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them later. Because, see, they were youth.
Yes.
They were teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think
But
about
they're
that.
grandparents. Some are raised,
Sure,
I guess.
yeah. Yeah.
But the son that died, David had brought his little boy, his grandson, his son, excuse me, he was 4. He was about this high, a real tiny little thing. He was just so unsettled all over the place, And he was constantly trying to get him to sit down. I said, just let him be. And I asked him, I said, is this the little one that's grown up and died? And he said, yes. I can't remember his name, but I remember meeting him when he was little, But the friendship is strong among the mountain people. Couldn't get down to the coast. Some of the coasts did go up there. Well, the means. I admire for wanting to live spirituality the best way they can, faith.
There are people of religiosidad, that religion that's half, what do you call it? Half wizardry or something like
Half
that.
what?
Witchery, witchcraft and that kind of thing, and half Catholic. And they don't. And so anything that will feed into this is good. And they'll take to it, is what I want to say. They'll take to it. It feeds something that they need. Even here, the Mexicans, you go into their homes, they don't always come to church, but they have all the saints, and they have the candle burning when they're not supposed to, but they'll have the candle burning all day long. And they may not go to church, but in their own heart, and when it comes to a funeral or something like that, it's a church they go to. So it carries up here even now. Whether it'll carry it into their children, I'm not so sure about that.
But they surely are open to the visitors. How you will receive. They don't know you from Adam or Eve, and you're just so welcome. No, but your person too.
Yeah.
Your person too. You're open. You're smiling. And it makes a difference.
There again, I wanted to keep up the Spanish, but principally I wanted to be around these people that I worked 50 some years with, and I didn't want to start over. Did not want to start over from scratch. And so this looked like a good possibility in which I can meet people from all over South America and Central America. Don't have a long period, but between the doctor and him visiting them and getting a prescription ready, I have a good 10 minutes. And we converse and I talk to them, and they warm up. You know right away that they're warming up because they begin to tell you part of their story. So I find this very, very energizing. I go twice a week, sometimes 3, depending if they need me. But we were closed for 2 months, but we opened up in June, and so I've been working ever since. We used to just see patients on the virtual. Now we see them face to face, but they have to have their vaccinations before they come in. Otherwise, it's virtual. But I'm enjoying it.
I think what she does is fantastic, really, because she had to learn medical terms and the like. Oh boy, that's another language.
Well, I did have a little help because I worked for 30 years with pregnant women from the time of their conception till the time the child was 2 years old. Make sure they got all their whatever they needed
Medical
during
attention.
Yes, Westchester, Pennsylvania. And so I was to some extent, but just going from maternity to regular practice, I don't know the names of the medicines. And one man down there was very nice. He put the main medicines down on a paper that I could practice the names of saying it. They come in, Spanish rattle off those medicines that they have.
yeah.
Jeez, yeah. But yeah, it's getting better and better.
Centro Latino, we have been handicapped because of the COVID. The Centro is non-governmental, but it is on the parish grounds at the corner of the parish. And the center is now three rooms cluttered where a lot of things function. Paperwork, lawyers and all that kind of stuff, official stuff. And then you have a place for the food, and then we have a clothes closet. And it's open to the public. And you don't have to be a Latino, but most of them are Latina people. And we get them mainly from Mexico. We've had Honduras, Guatemala. That's the main street. And they're allowed to come in and go through the clothes closet and take what they need. But to get the food, they have to verify where they live and the documents necessary. Otherwise, you're going to have people just going from one place to another. Okay. But that's mainly the theme. And then what I did, apart from the clothes closet, I worked with a group of women, the women that would come.
I remember that.
But they could only come once. We could only use the building once a month where we had the meetings. And that was across the street in the community building that belonged to the parish. Well, what happened? It's going to be almost 2 years now. Right before the COVID broke out, we had a change of pastor. Now, the pastor never had anything to do with the Central. And he really never did come around, that Mike Tobin, whoever he is. And now he speaks out in the register as if he's the chief of police. Anyway, he didn't bother us, and we didn't have to bother about it because everything was non-governmental. And Pat is an excellent executive director. She's excellent. Has a lot of background experience. She's Adrian Dominican,
Okay.
yet very capable, very sharp. A lot of finance experience, a lot of writing for grants and things like that nature, you know. Very good with official people, with your policemen and lawyers. She has a list of lawyers that will give their time when they're needed. She goes to jail for the people. And America, her secretary, will be right with her. She is a Mexican-American, but married an American, but very legally here for years, and is bilingual. Okay. What happened? Change of pastor. David Sanchez from St. Joseph was changed to Asuncion. Okay. Within the first 2 weeks, he dismissed his parish council. He told Sister Pat they had to get off the grounds. He wanted to use that to make the parking lot bigger. The third thing, he wasn't about to live in that little squatty house that they had for the priest. He was going to rent another place. And then the people that he's going to appoint can work in that house. And that is the situation in which Pat and our center found ourselves. He's from Puerto Rico. Well, he has a background. Some people know of it and some don't. And he was called down before from another parish. We're doing the same thing. So we were going to write letters, and I had consulted with Jean Ann because she would know the ins and outs of doing that. And I was consulting with Pat in our core group, and finally they said, knowing him, we don't think it's good to write the letters because the bishop knows who he is. He moved him once, and he's not going to move him again. The other problem that we feel might fall into our lap is he's going to take vengeance on the clothes closet. On the central Latino. So we didn't do it. So we were still paying off a debt of making the clothes closet place bigger and the like. It was an old garage, and there was grease all over the floor, and so Pat went through a lot of friends and people and places that donated so that we could fix it up. Well, she still owed on that. And now she had to move across the street and try to rent another place, which she did, but it was smaller. So they had to put on one more building. That was another expense. The building is finished. They packed up everything. I didn't go out because of the COVID. They didn't want me to. They only had 3 people that would come, and they were careful. And now they're in a state of still unpacking, and we still aren't open. And she told me it might even be November. So that is the picture there.
So they're not getting any help whatsoever in the meantime. Nobody is being helped.
They will see America and Pat's will let one person at a time. They have a telephone system. All the people on their list have telephones that would be eligible to still receive food, but they don't have much food. And if they had food, they would take it and leave it like on the sidewalk in front of their house. Didn't go in. The Shelbyville people are very generous, some of them. They have some very wealthy people out there, and they were extremely kind to the Central Latino during this period. So what Pat would do, she gave out no money. She bought cards, Kroger cards, and if they came for food, she gave them the Kroger card.
Okay.
They had to get food. So that system was going on, and I don't know if she still has any means to do that or not right now. This past 2 weeks I haven't heard. And it's going to be hard to get back on your feet, but determined. And I don't know when we'll be able to open up to the public. And there's no place to park now, so I don't know, I guess on the street. It's just...
Can you park in their lot?
Huh?
Can you park in this
Not the
church's
church
lot?
lot. No, see, that's what he wanted to get rid of. Us parking there and across the street in the community lot. And then he wanted...
Christian charity.
Yeah.
When
He
you all
has
are
mass
open.
for the Latinos at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that awful?